be part of society. And I have made it on my own in this world. Will not take care of turn around a 2-year-old. I'm gonna start my own nation and do my own thing, and I will be king. I'm gonna start my own nation with the self-preservation. I'm gonna start my own nation with the self-preservation. Well, let me talk a bit about the weather. You must admit it's not very clever. Don't get me wrong, it's not an anti-British song. Well, there is nowhere I would rather be wrong. I'm gonna start my own nation and do my own thing, and I will be king. I'm gonna start my own nation with the self-preservation. I'm gonna start my own nation with the self-preservation. There are just a few things that I would like to say about the UK and how I think it has gone astray. Don't get me wrong, it ain't all bad. I love the crazy fads, like England always buggering up, but you know we're gonna win the World Cup. I'm gonna start my own nation with the self-preservation. I'm gonna start my own nation with the self-preservation.
Keep the red flag flying here.
And welcome to the Now Show. No, I've got it wrong again. It's Political Unmuted, and sort of how much better is that? And I have with me today 3 wonderful players of the... Oh, that's the wrong show as well. 3 wonderful political commentators who are going to share their wonderful and considered thoughts with us. I'm going to start with Jane, who is so wise and well-informed and often puts us to shame with the things that she knows that none of us know. Hiya, Jane.
Oh, thank you, John. Hello.
No, it's our privilege. Thank you. And then, of course, I'm going to introduce you to Paul Daly, who is the boss, really, and does all the tech stuff and knows everything about everything. And always cheats. He always gets 2 when I say you can only have 1. And finally, Mark, welcome back. Thank you.
I seem to be doing a lot more than normal. It's normally every 6 months, and now I seem to be coming out on every other week.
You've saved our bacon on a number of times recently, so thank you so very, very much indeed. And delighted to have somebody of your stature and knowledge on the show. Thank you so very much. And everybody who's here on the... My golly, what a string of comments we've got already. It's very exciting. The last show before Christmas. Not the last turkey in the shop, just the last show before Christmas. And it's time for... I'm going to start with you, Jane, because is it the one that you mentioned on? Go on.
Yeah, I think no, it's only one that I mentioned this time, so I hope it's the right one. So Ben, I don't know who Ben is, but Hilary Powell and Dan Edelstein, amazing people, have been sleeping on their roof in London in this horrific freezing cold weather for I don't know how many days now, until they crowdfunded enough money to get solar panels on 50 houses in their street, and they've been able to come down and sleep in their own beds this week because they made the crowdfund target. And it's not just that they thought they woke up and thought, oh, we'll do a crowdfunder. They've been working on this, I think, for about 2 years now. They've put so much work in. They're absolutely amazing. It's not the first project they've done. It's called Power, and it really needs checking out. It's amazing.
Thank you, and congratulations to them. I mean, just briefly, we have so many people doing such wonderful things, but sort of looking at it objectively, what is your view about charity as compared to the vital importance of state welfare? And are not people, wonderful people like that, letting the government off the hook?
Well, I think there should never be a need for charity for essential services. There should be enough for everyone without any need for charity. However, I wouldn't view what they're doing as charity as such. I see it as actually quite dynamic and exciting. They're proving this can be done. They've put so much work into this. There are real hurdles around what they're doing. And I've heard other people say you can't do it because of this and that, and they're right. But Dan and Hillary have looked into all this and found people, spoken to them, and found a way around it. And they're genuinely going to get solar panels across their whole street. They've got local schools and businesses involved in it. And I really think that this is going to be something really big, and it will prove that other people can do it too. So I wouldn't see this as charity.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you so much for your wisdom. Mark, moment of your week, please.
Right. Well, I'm normally used to having to pick one every 6 months, but I'm having to pick a load more. So I was just struggling when I got the call for half an hour ago or so. Right. So what I've gone for is because I have to look after my mother, I get to watch a lot of slightly more senior TV, and one thing she likes is Country File. And this week it was in North Wales. Now, North Wales, they're all traditionally Welsh speakers, and they were talking about the ecology and alternative power sources and things like that. One of the good things was they had a couple of people on there, and they were all speaking Welsh, and I thought that's great. I mean, it is a language in the UK, isn't it great? Now, I have to admit that deep down in my my mom's family roots, they did originally come from Wales, but I just thought it was great to hear people using their native tongues. I think we should hear more Cornish and more Welsh. We so much use English as just everything should be in English. No, I think it's an embarrassment how few of us can actually speak a foreign language.
Thank you. A wise statement and very good. Just completely ignoring the main point. When my wife was as poorly as she was, it would take her most of the morning to get up, and she'd have a shower and she'd be ready about 3 p.m. So sometimes we went out, but when we didn't go out, she used to watch Escape to the Country, in that kind of sort of elderly people watch these programs kind of mode. And I hated it. One thing I've sworn is I will never be reduced to Escape to the Country. So I admire you deeply that you've been here watching Country Films. Thank you. But thank you for the point as well about Welsh. Paul, your moment of your week.
The other people have inspired me to do other moments of the week, but I am just sticking to one. So the one is
my Christmas present, Paul.
There's oh yeah, I got a lovely
card.
You're
sticking to one. Is that
yeah? That's my Christmas present to you, is to stick to one. But thank you so much for your card as well. That was lovely this week to get your card. But yeah, it would. There's been a big breakthrough in nuclear fusion. Theoretically, which will create more energy than is put in, and could be a way of creating theoretically
A black
limitless.
hole which will suck the Earth into it and will all die. No, sorry.
Well, there's a theory that when they put on the Large Hadron Collider in 2012, was it 2012, 2011,
Yeah.
something like that, that when they put that on, that we're already sucked into a parallel universe then, and that's why everything's been so weird.
We should see that.
Everything's been so horrible since then and not made any sense. So maybe that's all. Yeah, but the potential limitless energy, there's a little while to go yet, but any form of energy is a good thing for the human race, I guess. A human race that consumes more than it puts back in, something that actually creates more than is put into it, is kind of good, I guess. So yeah.
Can I give you my prediction for 2023 then, a bit ahead of the thing? I predict, Paul, that corporate capitalism will find a way to make us pay for it. It'll get just as much as the other energy that they give us.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Or they'll try. They'll try.
Yeah. Strap them to the fusion engine. Right. Thank you so much indeed. God bless you all. And let's see if you got Lizzie F. Hundreds of thousands are facing homelessness. Well, if that's your moment of the week, Lizzie, thank you for sharing it. And we're shamed by that. Yes. Leanne, the people who created the COVID vaccine have found a way to use the same process for treating cancer. Is that the one, Leanne, where they jiggle the DNA and your own immune system can tackle it? I saw something about that. That is very exciting. And they're talking about, we'll be talking about Liam later on, I think. Can anybody spot any other moments of the week?
Oh, Neil mentioned Mick Lynch and Richard Madeley.
Oh.
Which will be getting mentioned. Let's not go into that too much, because that's definitely getting mentioned today, isn't it?
Well, sort of, as long as you don't accuse me of answering your questions for you. You're answering your own question, John.
And then there's another one as well about Liam Stephen. And again, that's going to get mentioned, I'm pretty sure. Yes.
That's it. Jacqueline Hemmings, God bless you, Jacqueline. Well, we must have Jacqueline on the show sometime.
He's great.
You must come on the show, Jacqueline, sometime. My moment of the week, she says, was reading Prem Sikka's tweets about the prices Big Pharma are charging for drugs. I am going to answer my own question here now, Jacqueline, because this is a big issue. And it's an issue about where everybody's right. And when you live in a capitalist world, it is absolutely right that the companies that make the drugs should charge the maximum possible price for that. That is their obligation to their shareholders. And that is why capitalism is evil, because it says what it says in the Bible. It makes evil, it makes a good out of evil. And sort of in a socialist world, of course, what happens is that you provide the things that the people need at a price they can afford. And that's absolutely contrary to capitalism. And we know that good is people's health. Thank you. Oh, Kirsty Smith watching Ian Byrne give Teresa Coffey a good grilling about fishermen. Well, there's a lovely number of mixed metaphors there. Thank you, Kirsty Smith. God bless you.
Now it's time for the big story.
And the big story, of course, ladies and gentlemen, is sort of no day strike-free till Christmas. In fact, I think till New Year. No day strike-free till Christmas. We're living through unprecedented times, I think. These are massive strikes as well. Mark, can you update us on what's happening in terms of strikes around the country? And then tell us what you think about them. What was your thoughts on them?
Well, I mean, everybody is now feeling the pinch, and basically can take no more, as it says, no passaran. We no more, and I think it is time for that. I mean, it's great to see great straight talking um, union leaders, Dave Ward, Mick Lynch, and that Mark from PCS. I hope will get some time on air as well. He knocks them into a cotted hat when he's been on Question Time. So I do hope the PCS guy gets it, and also the lady from the UCU as well. Joe, is it Joe Brady or something like that? I think Paul's nodding. He knows this, and I should know this with all the teachers here and what have you. But there's been a lot of strikes. Obviously, we had a massive rally on Friday with the CWU down in London. Great photos from Neil. Everybody go and help out Neil, because he's doing us a great job with some fabulous photography of these events. And if people, one of the reasons I do it as well is because we really need good, clear, perfect images of these strikes, because nobody can lie about those. So everybody go and give Neil a hand with what he's doing. He's got a great business there. So solidarity to Neil with all he does. I wish I could do it full time, mate, but I'll leave you to do that. But yeah, so we got the railway workers off, but we've got it seriously. People keep on coming to me and talking about how if you don't, that it's rubbish. If a pay cut, a pay rise less than inflation is a pay cut. And they say that's rubbish. No, it isn't. If you don't get a pay rise, it's the same with inflation, you are going backwards. That's the story. And also the government are now trying to, of course, play off everybody against each other, and saying, oh, what about working people? What aren't the posties working people? Aren't the railway people working people? There's no point in having, to answer Richard Madeley, who had his arse handed to him by a good old Mick Lynch, there's no point in having trains, trying to get into the shops if you can't afford to bloody well buy anything. And as we see, the government are trying to stop things. The railway board have actually said we've got a deal, but the government refused it. They said no, you can't put that to the railway worker, to the RMT. We came out on Sunday night, and I was trying to find the tweets about it. And the media are just realized. The media, hopefully, I think the worm has turned, and people are realizing that the organised media lied to them as well. It's great to see so many polls and so much coming into the media where they're having to struggle to find people against the strike. So remember, the nurses, everybody who is striking, are people we cannot do without. If they all stopped, the country would stop. If all these businessmen disappeared, as Owen Jones said in that famous quote, in his quote from Chavs, the world will pretty much carry on as normal.
Thank you, Mark. God bless you. Paul, taking up that idea, how important is it that the strikers win these strikes?
I think it's huge, but strikers are winning. So we're seeing quite a few like pay disputes being resolved. Unite have resolved a few. CWU have, I believe with BT Openreach, they've come to an agreement, and it's all been massive pay rises, because I think, the way this show's been framed, the way we titled this show, was about the media framing of the strikes and how the media have gone on about this. Now, the media aren't reporting that these companies can actually afford to give these pay rises. They can afford to do that, and it's such an awful media rhetoric where they'll say, oh well, these people are, they can't expect to get this much pay because we're in troubled times and stuff. They never report, alongside all these things about record price rises, they never report that there's record profits. The record profits are higher than the price rises that we've got. People are doing incredibly well at the top at the moment, and that is a huge part of why we need to go on strike, because when you create that level of inequality, it creates huge problems. It creates these massive levels of inflation, which makes everything more expensive. So that needs to be reported by the media, and it simply isn't. The media are simply trotting out the government line time after time. Like Mark mentioned and Neil mentioned in the comments, Richard Madeley, that was embarrassing. It was pure partridge. He's just shouting at McGlinch. He's like, actually, you're saying that Christmas doesn't start until Christmas Day or Christmas Eve. It actually starts on the 1st of December. I was like, no, it doesn't. And he shouted at him for ages, and Mick Lynch was saying, are you just going to interview yourself? You know, this is ridiculous. And then also on Radio 4, like when they went down the government line, what was the Radio 4 one? When she just kept on asking, oh yeah, how much pay have your members lost? Trying to like kind of demoralise the staff. Well, yeah, they know that they've lost pay. They know this. But they're doing that because they really deserve a fair amount of pay. And then also, you know, like it wasn't reported very well that the government stepped in to block a pay offer from Network Rail. You know, and Mick Lynch has come out and said that. So the media narrative around this is setting the tone. So we also need to get together as independent people, independent media. And when we win these strikes, when the people win these strikes, they win it for all of us. As soon as they win their strike, they win it for all of us. So we need to be shouting about those victories, because the media don't want us to know about this, because the media are billionaire owned or government owned. You know, they've got those people who are their friends in high places to report this news in a really appalling way. So, yeah, it's hugely important that we win these strikes. We are winning strikes, and when I say we, I mean the working class movement. But we need to celebrate those victories as well. So victory to the RMT, victory to CWU, victory to the teachers, victory to the nurses, victory to ordinary people who, if they get more money in their pay packet, will spend it in the local community. So if you've got a small business and you want people to spend in your small business, you want people to be paid more, because that means they've got more to spend at your business. It's as simple as that. It's really simple economics, and you never hear that media narrative.
Thank you. Mark, Leanne says Midlands Metro workers had a huge win and says you might know about that.
I know that Midlands Metro workers have had a big win. I can't remember the exact pay deal, but it's basically, it goes between Wolverhampton and Birmingham. It's another route in which unfortunately I've been using sometimes. I don't know if it's strike breaking when RMT have been on, but it was to photograph the guys in Birmingham who were standing outside New Street, and I don't like driving into Birmingham. But they actually went on an all-out strike. Let's not also forget the guys who really were before the bin men, before the rail workers, which were the Coventry bin men, and they got an inflation-busting pay rise, quite a large one. I think it was around 18%, and also they're trying to get rid of Pete Randall, the shop steward for the Coventry bin men, and basically had to reinstate him as part of the actual settlement. And there's loads, but the Metro, those guys did a great job, but they actually went on all-out strike in the end. They said, look, no, it's not just going to be single days, because people have found the single days, and they're here and there, it stops it, because the day after on public transport, everything's in the wrong place of a strike, so it makes it an extra day in effect where you're not striking. But there was a good comment, I can't remember who it was from, but the media are quoting some right rubbish about, like, because of the strikes, there's going to be no trains on Christmas Day. There have never in my lifetime been trains on Christmas Day or Boxing Day, although there's some apps tell you there has never been trains on those 2 days. And it's something we need to remember. They will try and twist things. That program about that tax, I said, he came up, apparently the people for statistics have been telling the government to stop on Brexit giving false information. I wonder if they'll start turning their fire on what the government are saying about strikes.
I think it's really interesting, Mark, that the idea that you and Paul are selling, that actually, let's start talking about the success of the strikers and the successes of the strikes, and not always about the damage that the strikes have done to sort of everybody's normal way of life, the disruption. Let's talk about the success and what they're doing to sort of help the workers, because ultimately Their battle is our battle. Jane, have you got anything to add to us about this? What are your thoughts about the strikes?
Well, obviously they're being misrepresented in the media. It's really frustrating to see the one-sided side of it, where the media represents a picture where there's only one side who can possibly back down, and they don't represent why the workers are striking. When you actually listen to people talking, it's heartbreaking. What they're trying to do to the RMT and the CWU is absolutely terrible, not just for the workers, but for us as a country. If they turn if they turn Royal Mail into another gig economy company, it's just disgusting. That will have repercussions for workers in other companies. Other companies won't be having to meet those standards that the CWU have fought for so many decades. There'll just be a race to the bottom for all of us. And the RMT, when they're talking about our driver only trains with no guards and closing all the ticket offices and slashing a third of maintenance, that has huge repercussions for passengers and safety. And I've felt frightened at a station before and on a train on more occasions than I can think of. And if I was a person with disability, I wouldn't go anywhere near our train. So it's absolutely disgusting that you have to, as it is, you have to phone up, I think, a day or 2 days in advance if you just want to go on a train when you're in a wheelchair. It's absolutely ridiculous. And this will make that so much worse. And the nurses, when you listen to the nurses talking and the paramedics and the ambulance crews, they are breaking. They're just breaking. And when you look at them, of vacancies out there are in the NHS, they're not doing this because they want more money. They're doing it because they cannot cope anymore with the understaffed situation that they're in. It is breaking everything, and they're trying to get the government to wake up and do something that will stop that. We're losing so many. We're not getting new ones in. So it's just so sad that the media is representing this so badly when this is so very vital to all of us.
I mean, spot on. When a CEO comes on, as he did on the television tonight, and he says that they've made their offers, their workers a fair offer, albeit below inflation, but to get that, they have to accept modernisation. What that is it's CEO speak. For one, we're going to be giving our workers less in real terms than they were getting before. And two, we're going to reduce their conditions of work on what they were getting before. And this is exactly what you were saying, Jane, about the race to the bottom. And it will not stop until they're stopped.
It won't. Can I say something else just quickly on the CWU? Because I listened to I think it was on Novara, played a clip of a postie talking to the other day, and he was saying it's not about the below inflation pay rise, it is about the gig economy like standards that they're trying to impose on them. But apart from that, these changes to their conditions will mean they get a 20% slash to what they take home anyway, because they're taking away the enhancements they get for working unsociable hours. So it's not even just about not wanting an inflation pay rise. Apart from destroying their terms and conditions and turning them into gig economy workers, they want to give them a big pay cut, but they've just done it by stealth, so it's not in the headline.
I was talking to the CWU strikers, and they were saying much the same thing, that part of the modernisation was that you work at the weekend as you do during the week. There's no overtime. And the other thing is that you don't go home when the day is at an end. You go home when the job is over. So you have to work after hours, but you don't get any more money for those after hours. And it's just it's just depression by stealth. Hang on, Brian Smith. Paul, what do you make of Brian Smith's comment? The fifth budget this year, just announced, doesn't provide for pay increases in the public sector. They've had 5 budgets and put out another false one that will be trashed by successful strikes. Is it true that the government are actually working on the principle of zero pay increases in the public sector?
Yeah, so in our ballot for teachers, we've said it needs to be a funded pay increase, because what they might do and what we've seen them do in the past is that, yeah, by all means, pay your staff more, but it'll bankrupt your school. Now, we know that a lot of schools are in danger of going bankrupt anyway next year because they simply aren't funded highly enough with the increases in energy and what have you. So yeah, it's a huge and very important point that Brian's making there, that these things need to be funded. Now, only governments can create this money. They created the money when it came to when it came to COVID and given, which is it, Michelle Moan a load of money for nothing. They created that money out of nothing. They typed it into a computer and put it in her bank account. Like, you know, I don't see why they can't create that money, because that money will stay in the community. You know, it will be that social financial lubricant that will make people buy things from one another and will get the economy moving if it goes to the right people and they all spend it, rather than ending up in these offshore bank accounts, which is where all the COVID money ended up.
I was at a conference a few weeks ago where they had a chap there, and I didn't really agree with everything he said, but one of the things he floated was that, you know, that the monetarist theory is that if you pump money into the economy without producing the goods to compensate it, then there will be inflation. And he said it's not just goods, however, it's goods and services. So if pumping the money in, you actually increase the volume of services, then it's not inflationary, which I thought was very interesting. Kirsty Smith raises the point, women's on the pickets this week were saying that they couldn't do the new work patterns because of weekend work and family commitments. This is misogynistic as well. And we find that always it's the carers around these people very often are doing unpaid caring work, certainly unpaid childcare work, and they're the ones who get crushed, awful. Yes, Jacqueline Hemming talked about the working day, Unity News.
Terry's made a good comment.
Sorry?
Neil's made a good comment. Don't forget, many workers have to claim universal credit to subsidise their low wages, and I think that's something we need to talk about. Really, is if a job is not making not enough for people to live on, then that worker, so the worker is having to claim off the state. Then the boss of that worker, and I would say to a certain extent the customers of the worker, are scrounging off the state, because so a worker is worth their hire, as it says in the good book. And we need to really talk about that. I mean, one thing that people say, well, what about you lot all say about going to a £15 an hour minimum wage? How am I going to provide for that? Well, one idea was that Social Security would be paid to the company so it could afford to give people good wages. But the question would be, would that trickle to the workers? That's going to be a good question, but it would have to do that.
I mean, that's spot on. And when you increase benefits, everybody goes on about scroungers on the benefit system. When you allow the firms to get away with letting the government make up their workers' wages, that's not scrounging. And so it's not called scrounging, but it's just as much, it's just as bad. I'm going to chunt for a while, Paul, if you might, and just because I've been wanting to say this in a genuine forum. Universal credit is absolutely awful for people who are in a job where their income is uncertain, because it pays the money for next month on the work that they did last month. So if you have a worker that let's say gets £600 universal credit 1 month, but that's a very, very good month, that means for 1 month, there's loads of money about. And it's very difficult for the people to say, well, I'm going to put that £600 on one side, because they're clearing debts, they're buying in groceries so they can get better deals on buying in bulk. They're paying off the rent arrears and things like that. So they come to the end of the month and they've used all the money. But then what happens is that universal credit says, oh, you earned an awful lot last month from your job, So we're not giving you any universal credit this month. And of course, if next month is then a bad month, then they have to live on nothing for a month, and they fall into debt. And sort of what this system that sort of the government does, whereby it makes up the wages of workers, it means that if you're self-employed, you have this very volatile income, which is impossible to budget for. And it's just an absolutely cruel system. And it's an absolute argument for what Paul often advocates, which is what's it called? UBI?
I'm more for a job guarantee these days, but yeah, UBI, Universal Basic Income.
Universal Basic Income, that's it. And we have to win this fight, people. If you're listening in, we have to win this fight. They have to win this fight, and we have to support them because they're just driving us down. They're turning the screw. Horrific. Thank you, everybody, for your comments. And sorry that I went off on one.
Could I mention what Unity News you were about to say? Unity News, there's a really interesting debate going on in the chat about academies. So Unity News, who are absolutely excellent, check them out, give them a like. So had said, academies have already said they won't be continuing next year now. There's no profit to be removed from the education budget they get. Now, that's interesting because for one thing, we were all like, we were sold this lie that academies weren't there to make a profit. And imagine making a profit out of education, and these CEOs skimming the money from the top. Absolutely appalling. But that generated a really good debate in the chat that I don't think we've got enough time to go into in detail. But I think at some point we need to do an academy show, don't we?
The new year, we'll kick off the new year by giving you a discussion about academies. And well, you haven't heard everything before that these wonderful people are going to tell us. The second story comes from actually The Guardian. And, a body called Compass has been trying to persuade the Labour Party to agree to what it calls Stand to Win. And the idea about this is that there are with the first past the post system, there are so many seats where actually the Tories don't win because they have most of the vote. They win because the other competing parties split the majority amongst them. So none of them is big enough to beat the Tories, and that keeps the Tories in power. And they've been trying to get the Labour Party to agree that there's some elections some constituencies where it would be better if the Labour Party didn't stand and allowed the Lib Dems, who are saying might have a much better chance of winning, to take that seat. And that's the way to defeat the Tories. The Labour Party has used a trick of the Constitution, actually changed the rules and not allowed that debate, not allowed that discussion at all. And so Compass have now come forward, and what they're saying is that Labour is shaky. The Labour victory is by no means certain, and what you have to do is you have to learn to cooperate with other opposition parties. That's the idea. So the question is, and it's to Paul, is Labour's lead shaky? Is Labour guaranteed or not to win the next election? What's your comments?
It's Labour's lead is built on hatred of the Tories and what they did during COVID, what they've done for the last 12 years, and a very, very friendly media. Let's be honest, I think the media were very unfriendly from 2015 to 2019 to the Labour Party, and before that, really, they were unfriendly to Ed Miliband. We all remember the kind of anti-Semitism that very few in the Labour Party stood up against then, when it was Ed Miliband the subject of it, and Jeremy Corbyn stood up for Ed Miliband when they were anti-Semitic about his dad. back then things were unfair in the media. Now I think the media are very favourable towards the Labour Party, and I believe that's because of their donation structure. So Labour are now beginning to be funded by hedge funds and private healthcare donors. Check out Milk the Cow podcast for all this, because there's a load of information on who is funding the Labour Party now and whether or not you should vote Labour. They're also very untrustworthy because there have been a lot of lies told by Keir Starmer. So I think there's a very shaky foundation to this poll lead, and we're starting to see it narrow. And I think those people who are angry at the Tories, that they're going to have short memories. And if Labour simply try to mimic the Tories by having the exact same policies as them, or moving to the right of the Tories, so we have the likes of Darren Grimes, and I don't know if any of you know who he is, but he's some sort of awful little GBB's kind of guy from the northeast. He was the one who had no vegetables on his dinner before he shared it. Anyway, it's a bizarre thing. But he's right wing. He's from the northeast. He claims to be working class, but he was praising Labour's policy on the NHS, which was to go after the British Medical Association this week. When Wes Streeton said he didn't support the British Medical Association and that they needed to get real and stuff, and he was going around in the right-wing media saying about how he didn't support the strike action and that they were unreasonable. Then also you had Nigel Farage praising the Labour Party immigration policy and highlighting the fact that Labour Party's policy is pretty much what UKIP's was in 2015. The Labour Party's foundations are incredibly shaky. If you look at what they're doing to activists, the people who actually go out there and do the work for the Labour Party, they are either trying to keep them imprisoned within the party and saying, don't you dare speak out, don't you dare tell the truth. Because we saw what happened, and I'm sure someone else will elaborate on this, but with Liam Stephen that we mentioned earlier on, being basically bullied out of the Labour Party at a time when his mental health was suffering. The way they've and this is typical of the Labour Party, the way that the members have been treated, especially when they associate with people like me, who have publicly left the Labour Party and are critical of the Labour Party. What the Labour Party fear are people who tell the truth, and they will come out and they will try to discredit you as a person, and they will tell people not to be your friend and not to associate with that. Now, this kind of bullying behaviour, it will become more and more clear. I'm just going to finish off talking about, we know that I was rejected from the Labour Party. One of the things I was rejected as a candidate for poor political judgment was I'd been critical of the Conservative Party. That's in there. That's in the dossier that's against me. I was critical of the Conservative Party. Now, there's a candidate today in, I think it is in Telford. The Labour selection is a straight contest between Sean Davis and Callum Parish. Callum Parish admitted in 2020 that he did not vote for any Labour candidate in 2019. So he openly admitted that he didn't even vote Labour in 2019, and now he's some kind of favourite. That is the kind of thing that due diligence doesn't pick up. So support for not Labour and not supporting Labour is not a problem. Being critical of the Conservatives is a problem in the Labour Party. It's an absolute mess.
Just going back to Liam Stephen, what frightened me about that is that the case against him was that he'd been consorting with people who'd been expelled from the Labour Party. I mean, this is guilt by association. It's an horrific thing, isn't it?
Well, this is what's been going on all along, and if you showed any solidarity, if you look at Ken Loach, the legendary director Ken Loach, was kicked out of the Labour Party for speaking at a Labour Against the Witch Hunt event, where he was saying it's absolutely appalling that left-wing people are being hunted out of the Labour Party for factional reasons. Now, over time, this has been later admitted that, yeah, we did do it for factional reasons. It has been admitted now that that's the case. So if you're against that, then you also have to go. Now, remember, every single one of these Labour Party members who's either kicked out or told they can't speak to their friends or that kind of thing, they're all voters as well. If Labour will treat the people who care most about their election like this, because you don't join the Labour Party because you think it's funny. It's the least funny thing you can do. It's not an exciting thing to do. It was at times in the past, but it's boring, it's mundane. But you believe in a cause and you want to do things. If the very people who believe the most in your cause are the people you go after, and you will treat them absolutely appallingly, you will not care one jot about their mental health. You will send them something saying, "Oh, go and visit the Samaritans if you're feeling sad about this." People who dedicate their lives to getting them elected, they'll treat people like that. What they're going to do to people who are the electorate, who didn't vote for them, who don't agree with them in any way, shape, or form? I think this Labour Party, this incarnation of the Labour Party, is an incredibly worrying body of people. Careerists, the exact people who you don't want to be in charge of the country, people who think of this not as a service, not to try and help the world, but to try and create a good career for themselves. That's where we are in the Labour Party, and these people are foul. Absolutely foul. Ruthless, wicked, appalling. Yeah, I don't know. I can't tell the difference economically between the Tories and the Labour Party. And personality wise, I kind of at least understand the posh people who are in the Conservative Party, because they don't know any better. They think, oh yeah, life's great. And these whingers at the bottom, they actually don't understand someone else's situation. It's these like kind of people who claim to be working class but went to Oxford and like, yes, I'm now better than you. I left my community to better myself, and now I'm back to lead you, like Alan Strickland said in his video for Sedgefield CLP candidate. He said he's now better and has arrived back to save everyone. It's appalling.
Jane, do you share Paul's disillusion with the Labour Party, and particularly in terms of the way they're showing in regards to the strikes?
Yes, I do. Absolutely. I completely agree that the people at the top of the party at the moment, the people sitting on the front benches and leading the party, do seem to me to be ill-informed. I don't think they know what they're doing. I don't think they understand economics very well. I think they are careerists. I think they're power hungry. I am increasingly coming to the conclusion that they would be very dangerous people to be in power, and they don't seem to have any standards whatsoever in terms of their dishonesty, and the underhand, nasty methods they've used to abuse people who are very good people who have done all they can to try and get a Labour government, and who would have supported them through goodwill even if they wouldn't have been their first choices at the top of the party had they not been treated so badly and chucked out. But I do at the same time think it is important to remember that the Labour Party isn't one solid block that's all the same. So you've got people like Ian Byrne, who ran the Right to Food campaign, who, the leadership have tried desperately hard to get out of the party. Zava Sultana, who put the bill through Parliament today, free school meals for school children, who again the party have tried desperately hard to get rid of. You've got people like Dawn Butler, who stood up and had the bravery to speak truth to power to Boris Johnson and say what we all knew, that he was lying in Parliament. There's some really, really good Labour MPs, and I think it really does come down to the fact that I kind of feel we've all got a duty to vote, and vote for the best candidate there is there. And I know in some places that's going to be really slim pickings, and there might genuinely not be anyone on the ballot who you think is suitable. But in a lot of places there is someone decent. And what we saw at the local elections, what I noticed was that though Labour made some gains when you didn't dig into it, their vote share pretty much everywhere dropped, and the Greens made an awful lot of gains, big gains in terms of the number of votes they were getting, and the Lib Dems too. There were some really tiny new parties, the Pal Alliance, that didn't gain any traction at the local elections, but I think are really worth looking at. And potentially getting involved in, and things aren't going to change if we just lose hope in politics and walk away. As much as every part of me wants to do that right now because it's exhausting, nothing will change and things will get worse if we do that. So I do think we've got to find the good people that are there who are brave enough to stand up and support them.
So you're basically saying that the Compass is right, that what you do is we need a progressive alliance, is the fancy word that they call it, which will just unite behind a decent anti-Tory candidate and get rid of the Tory government and create a much more very parliament.
I don't know if I think that we can get a group of MPs from different parties to unite, if I'm really honest. But I think we just need good people who will do the right thing and agree on enough, that we can get some good policies through. And there was something in some communications I received from Compass that was really interesting. So they said in 2019, 16.2 million votes were cast for progressive parties, 13.9 million was voted for the progressive party, so that's 3 million more for progressive. Yet the Tories came out of an 80-seat majority because of this crazy first past the post system that we've got. And that in 19 out of 20 elections since 1945, actually, the progressive parties have had more votes. So overwhelmingly, despite the fact the press would like to paint us as a bigoted, racist nation of haters, we're overwhelmingly, despite all the odds, quite progressive and decent. Obviously the results of that, because this stupid system we've got, that we've had 12 Tory governments and 8 progressive governments. So the voting system does need to change.
Last comment, Mark. When it comes to the election, are you going to hold your nose and vote Labour, or are you as disillusioned as Paul and Jane?
Well, unfortunately, I am still a member, and I just probably will have to, because of what it says in the party. I mean, you've got to realise my family go back to the Attlee election, and my great grandmother was, as I said on the show, was walking around the streets of Wednesbury and Leabrook and campaigning for Labour, and off basically offering people lifts to get to the polling station around that general election. We have been through bad times, and I think that there needs to be radical change in the Labour Party. The question is it going to survive? I saw an interesting quote, interesting kind of comments that have been made recently about what's happened. Starmer has taken the election, the poll lead he has got as a like carry on son type thing to actually do what he's doing, but it's not. It's just people are cheesed off with the Tories, and when it comes to actually the elections, that will change, and the people that have put Starmer there will get rid of him. We saw it when the party almost failed. There was inner workings. If you watched, it will happen again.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments, everybody. It's all very depressing. Thank you for your comments there as well. But we just have 10 minutes left, and I have 2 more light-hearted questions to ask my panel. And the first one is, in an energy cost crisis, I want you to give me your 2 best tips to save money in the energy crisis. This may go viral, people, because this may be the answer to a lot of people's problems this winter, if that's possible. So let's just see what you got to say. Jane, your 2 top tips for staying warm but saving money.
So Joe Solo put a post out on his social media the other day that I thought was really good, because I think he knows a lot about washing machines, and he put on there, wash your clothes at a lower temperature, because nowadays the quality of the detergents is so good it still will clean them, and it's not energy. But he said use half the detergent that they tell you, because they want to sell the product and get you to buy more, and detergent's very expensive. Use that money for some electric instead.
Thank you very much. There's one idea. Have you got a second?
So the other thing that I've always done from being younger, I remember hearing that if you switch a light on, it takes a lot of power. So I've always tended to leave them on rather than turning them off if I went out of the room. But I was reading that nowadays the quality's gone up so much that it's better to turn things off if you're not using them and turn them back on when you come back in. So I've started doing that.
Thank you. My father always used to yell at us for turn that light off, turn that light off. It was like living in the war. Mark, 2 top tips for saving energy.
Wolf, try and turn the radiators off in rooms that you're not using, but be careful. One thing I'm going to say, which is not really for saving money for energy, is don't be careful if you ever do fully turn your heating off, drain the system, because I work in home insurance, and we saw over Christmas where everybody left their homes and they turned the heating off and it went below freezing. They came back to a lot of burst pipes. Be very careful with that. The one thing I quite like is the massive oversized hoodies. Obviously there is a name for commercial name, but the big massive ones, you know, they're like 6 times XL. I've got one of those and it is brilliant. I sometimes don't even need to put the heating on when I've got that in my room, because I work where I'm sitting here is where I do my work, because I still work from home, which everybody who can should do.
My son swears by an electric blanket. He uses that to get cozy when he's watching the television at night, and he uses it while he's working at his computer because he works at home as well. And he said that he just wraps himself in an electric blanket. It costs almost nothing to run, and it means you don't have to have the heating on. Paul Daly, 2 tips. Yeah.
Mm.
Paul, people are saying that.
Oh no, I haven't unmuted myself. Right, so apologies. I'll clip that together on the pod. So yeah, so my thing was to get a dog, so it can sit on your knee, but that won't save you any money. And again, I'm being very flippant here because I think the idea of us thinking that we need to save money on something as fundamental as heating, when people are making such vast profits from the energy industry, is absolutely appalling. So my suggestion in that spirit is you could try inheriting some wealth from your parents. I don't know. I don't know. I know one of the greatest ways of making more money, the most safe way and the most profitable way of making money, is to have inherited it, and that will generate more income for you. So what you need to do is make sure that you inherit something from a rich relative. So yeah, do that. That's my top tip.
Very clever, Paul.
Maybe even marry into money.
Well, we go back to the 18th century if you do that. Leanne points out that all these things have been happening before. Were you born in a barn? And it's like Blackpool illuminations, were the 2 things she mentioned. Of course, I was going mad about this to one of my children, and sort of saying that it's outrageous that we're happily talking about going back to the 1950s. And this is supposed to be a good thing. 2 things, people, my ideas. 1, drafts are responsible for so much heat loss. Even a modern house has enough drafts and to be equivalent to having half a door open. So to say, find your drafts, close them up if necessary, put bubble wrap over all the windows. And the second thing is that you must keep warm. Don't allow yourself to get cold through by reducing the down and down and down and down, else you'll make yourself poorly. And choose a room, if necessary, a tiny room, and keep that warm. And then, as Mark says, make sure that the rest of the house is just on the frost stand. Don't allow it to get freezing, because it's condensation problems as well as freezing problems. Right, second, last question, people, is, and we are running out of time, but Old Moore's Almanac. I was looking at Old Moore's Almanac. It used to be published every year. Last year, he predicted Russia's invasion of the Ukraine, shortages of items in the shops, Trump will be running again, the economy of China will be on the brink. And one person I was looking at, she said, I trust Old more than I trust our leaders, which actually probably is, it can't get much worse, can it? So I thought it would be nice just to ask my guests their top prediction for political prediction for 2023. Mark, your top prediction for 2023.
You would go with me first. I don't know. Literally anything you say, who would have thought that we'd have Elon Musk running Twitter?
This is why we have you on the show, because you're such geniuses and you know the scene and you can tell it. What's your... Come on, stick your neck out, Mark. We'll only hold you to it in 6 months.
I think there'll be a general strike. I think we are getting there. I hope there will be a general strike. We need to realise that if we don't stand up and say no more, no pass around, we will not. We are going back. And I was going to say, when people talk about modernisation of companies, it's not. It's going back to what before what the unions fought for at the turn of this century and a bit earlier, a bit later in the last century, rather.
During the general strike, my grandfather drove a bus and broke the strike. If we have another general strike, his grandson won't be doing that. Paul, prediction for 2023.
Can I do two?
Yes.
Okay, so Wes Streeting to become a real boy, and then will run for leader of the Labour Party before the next general election, when they realise that Starmer's work is done and he is starting to lose popularity. So that's prediction number one. Prediction number two is, absolutely by being forced to do so, because they won't let Corbyn back in, there will have to be a new left-wing movement which involves all of the People's Alliance of the Left, Breakthrough Party, Tusk, all those groups together, along with a brand new vehicle with Jeremy Corbyn inside of it, but not leading it, led by people who will be familiar to this channel. That's what I think.
I bold predictions here. That second one will be very exciting, and it'll leave a lot of us, Mark, with a difficult choice.
Through the Labour Party.
Finally, Jane, prediction for 2023.
So I'm going to say that we're going to renationalise the water companies, because they cannot get away with everything that has been released. They absolutely cannot get away with this now, and that we'll properly overturn the ban on wind turbines, because what they've done recently is a excuse for overturning the ban and still puts a lot of hurdles in front of actually having them, and they are the cheapest clean energy that we have, and we're just not going to put up with it as a nation for the prices to go up again in April to £3,000 a year on average. It can't be allowed to happen, so we're going to do that.
Thank you very much indeed. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the last show in 2022, which has been an awful year in many, many ways. Hasn't it really? We can only hope that some of those dreams come true in 2023, and that 2023 is better than 2022. When COVID finished, we all thought, we think it'll look up. Hasn't it been? Thank you for listening. Thank you for your loyalty through the year. We're coming back in the new year. I keep trying to persuade Jane to take over his chair. She'd be brilliant, but she won't. So you may be.
We need you, John. You're not allowed to go.
I don't really need me, but you may be stuck with me.
Yeah.
But thank you for watching us. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for your fabulous comments. If you want to share your predictions for 2023, it's too late to read any of them out, but thank you so much. And people will be able to read them in the comments. I have to say thank you to my wonderful guest, Mark. It's just so lovely to see you. Thank you very, very much. Jane, Miss Wonderful, God bless you. Thank you. We've become increasingly to rely on you. Paul, I'm going to yield to you, Sir Chunter, for a little while. So, but before I go, thank you to my guests. Merry Christmas. God bless you. Have a well-deserved, wonderful Christmas and a wonderful New Year. And to the guests and to the listeners, the same to you. God bless you this Christmas. Thank you so very much indeed. And finally, Paul.
Firstly, thank you to John for being an amazing host all this year, and it's been in many ways an absolutely dreadful year, but we've gone through it all together, and I'm glad to have been with people who are so close to me politically, and are like family to me. So thank you, John. Thank you to everyone who's listened as well. So we've got like loads of names who've come up on the screen. Special mentions to Toto as well, who goes around and wears red everywhere. Lovely to see you on the chat tonight. Didn't get to mention you there earlier on. And Milk the Cow podcast, lovely to see you on here as well. Leanne, your comments have been absolutely amazing tonight. Jacqueline, Unity News, and I'm sure that's Lizzie. Yeah, thank you so much for being on here. Really, really good. Kirsty, Neil, Mia, really brilliant. Looking forward to your paper coming out. Thanks to absolutely all of you. Sorry if I haven't mentioned you there, but it is really, really nice to have been with you all this year. Join Socialist Think Tank. Buy a t-shirt, give us some money if you want to. You can become a member and you can pay us some money if you want to see us continue to do what we're doing. Honestly, we don't get very much in, so it just covers the basic costs of running the shows and things like that, but it is really, really appreciated. It means we aren't out of pocket as much as we would be otherwise, but we know times are difficult, so become a member whether or not you can afford to pay anything. Do get involved. Socialist Think Tank's always been meant to be a vehicle for other people to do things as well, so if there's ever anything you want to do get in touch. And if there's ever anything you want to set up and use our platform to do so, then do it. We want people to just do things. Don't feel bad to ask. If you wanted to do a show that didn't have any of us involved, we'd be happy to set you up with the tech and do all those things and grow this platform a little bit more and have more and more people involved, because that's what it's all about. That's what socialism's about. It's about everyone doing things together and working together. Without working together, it's not going to get any better. I'm going to say something that I said a while back. Nobody's coming to save us. There's no political institution coming to save us. There is no magical figure. We believe in socialism. That means working together, and that means working hard together. We believe in hard work. We believe in looking after one another. So let's do it, because no one's coming to save us and make it happen without our consent anyway, are they? We're not going to be saved. But together, we can all help each other to create something much, much better. Also, final little bit of solidarity to Liam Stephen, who's been in touch tonight through Messenger. It was lovely to hear that he was watching the show. He really appreciated what we were saying. So thank you again. Love and solidarity to you. If you need anything personally, please do reach out, because we know how bad it is within the Labour Party. We know how difficult it is on people's mental health, how they treat people as human beings. They don't treat people as human beings at all. We are human beings. We're here to look after one another. So do reach out if you need any help, and that goes for each and every one of you. Take care, everyone. Have a lovely Christmas. Have a lovely holiday, whatever you do, whatever your beliefs, whatever your religion. Have a lovely, lovely break. And we will see you all in the new year. And maybe before then, we'll just have to see what we've got going on Socialist Think Tank, but we do need a bit of a break ourselves. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, I've rambled. Take care, everyone.
Keep the red flag flying.